2007 F150. This one's gonna receive a Compustar 925 and the blade bypass module. We're gonna be doing a keyless entry remote start, so I'm gonna quickly guide you to it and kind of show you how to wire it. So if you just kind of follow along, ask some questions, you should be able to do this, as it's a pretty easy truck. But overall, let's get to it. Just a quick recap. You do have to remove this metal piece. It's held by 4.8mm, and the cover itself, which is that goes right here, it is held by two 7mm on the bottom, and this thing just pops off via metal clips. Put that aside. You do have to take off the kick panel. First, you have to take off the door sill. Just pops off via these clips, so it's gonna need a little bit of the tugging. And the cover for the kick panel, you just kind of pull it this way, but make sure you take off the door sill first, then the kick panel, and then the cover right here. Make sure you take off the insulation or rubber seal and then pop it off. Just 4 clips, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we will begin with the ignition harness. The reason why you want to pop this off is for you to be able to access the plug for the parking light. It's going to be a positive parking light signal, which is brown. I'm gonna test that before. It's this one right here. Go ahead and test it. Strip it a little bit. If you're not comfortable and sure about it, strip it a little bit, plug it in, and every time you turn it to the parking light, it's going to illuminate your test light or voltmeter and show the positive, and that's what you're going to need. First thing you need to prep is the harness going to the rear. You're going to need the lock, unlock, and brake wire from this harness. And for the ignition harness, obviously it'll be here. I'll show you that too. The VAT system, which is the chip key. I'm also going to show you that. For the parking light, obviously I already mentioned it's here. So once I'm pretty much done with it, I'm going to show you where all the wires are. And this is pretty much easy. It's an easy vehicle. Here is the first few wiring that I generally do on these Fords. I don't hook up all the power and things like that, just because I want to be able to put this back, because I also use the door sill to kind of rest myself on when I'm underneath the dash. As you can see, nothing's wired up on top. The blue wire is unlocked. That'll go to pink, light green. The blue green from Compustar will go to pink and yellow. That's the lock. And the light green is the brake. So that'll be the blue and white from Compustar to green, light green. This thing has some kind of water buildup here, so that's kind of why I pulled the wire up. That way it's not going to be on the very bottom, just to kind of keep it on the safe side. So they're going to be resting up top like that. So, but here's the first few wires that you need. Go ahead and tuck everything back in, put the cover, and then we'll be moving on to the next wires. Here's the picture of the parking light. As I mentioned before, it'll be this brown wire from the parking light switch, and that will go to the green with white stripe, the thicker wire with the fuse, and that'll be your positive parking light. Alright, we'll begin with the transponder bypass wiring. In the blade, black plug, you will need a gray red and orange black. That's going to be your RX and TX signal wire, and that's what you'll see here. For the gray red, you're going to be tapping it in to the transponder bypass, the light or the white with the light green, and the orange black goes to the gray and orange. Now when you strip all of these wires, it's going to be the only 2 wires that are twisted together, so that would pretty much eliminate everything else or anything else that doesn't belong or not needed. So like I said, it's these 2 right here. They're already twisted together, so that pretty much eliminates that. And then we're going to be moving on to the ignition harness. Alright, next up will be the ignition harness. This is just a temporary ground. Once we put back the black, not the black, but the metal cover right here, we're going to be putting the ground up top. Some people will grind it from the OBD2, which is completely fine. I've always grinded here, never had no problem with it, so I've always just put it back where it should. For the ignition harness, it'll be, if you put this down, it'll be this plug right here. I already got that thing prepped, which is all of these bundle of wires. So once you're pretty much all done, all the wires are going to be kind of populated in this area. You already got a bypass already here, so we'll move on to the ignition harness, and I'll show you and pretty much guide you on which color you need. So I got the ignition pretty much all wired up. The one red and one red white goes to green and purple. That's the 12-volt constant, and the blue with the light green goes to the green of the Compustar. That's the ignition. The white is the accessory, which is black and light green. And for the starter, that's going to be the red and blue. I'm also going to attach a picture, that way you can double check. These zip ties, I always just kind of put these since it gets cold in Kansas. This is just my secondary precaution, that way it doesn't kind of start coming off, which, I mean, I've never seen it, but I kind of started doing it just for, like I said, precautionary situation. But pretty much once this is all wired up, obviously the ground right there, we can go ahead and start programming the bypass, and hopefully we don't have to do it 2 times. I will also attach a diagram and instruction for the TB. Once you have everything flashed, you can also see the diagram online. It's pretty much free for everybody, but I'll attach it anyway so you can see everything. And let's go ahead and pretty much program the keys. You can see the battery 12-volt constant is the light green purple, the starter is red blue, ignition is dark blue with green, and accessory is black green. For this one, you don't need a key sense. It's totally fine without it. Some Fords does need to be powered up, but on this particular case you don't need it, so just those 4 and you should be all good to go for the ignition harness. So I temporarily have the bypass module not all the way seated. I'm going to attach the diagram. Like I said, you can access it free online. This one, if you do not have the Weblink Updater to flash the bypasses, you will have to send it back to whoever you bought the unit from so they can do the cloning of the key. Now the cloning of the key, that's only needed if the customer only has, or the owner has 1 key. Now if they have 2, then you can pretty much program it pretty much on the spot and don't have to send it to whoever you bought it from. So I'm going to go ahead and see if it programs. Like I said, I'm going to attach everything on the end so you can see how it's done. But yeah, I'll go ahead and try that and hopefully it works. And here is the immobilizer bypass diagram. Like I said, you can access this from the iDataLink Compustar website. When you flash the unit, these are the only 2 things that you would need, is the ECM RX and TX, and pretty much the plug, I believe, is the connector B. But yeah, like I said, this is the only 2 things you need. And as far as the programming, as you can see, it shows here if you have 2 OEM keys, you'd have to follow these, and these are kind of time restricted. So, and for this particular number 10, you will have to remote start it, that way it'll sense ignition. If you do have only 1 key, like I said, you're gonna have to send it back to the company or the individual that you bought it from so they can reflash it, which is pretty much the number 10. But hopefully you have 2 keys so you don't have to do any of that. But overall, this is a pretty easy install. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will try to answer your question or help you out if you do leave a comment. Here's a quick demo of everything. I already got everything put back together. Obviously lock, unlock. I'm gonna go ahead and lock it again. Now you don't have to do that. I was just kind of showing you the functionality of the lock and unlock. But for the remote start, you just hold it. have the climate control turned on at the moment, but climate control is working. I already tested everything, but as you can see, everything is pretty much completed, and that pretty much wraps it up for this vehicle.